Together as a caucus, working with our Senate partners on a bipartisan, bicameral, $908 billion COVID relief package that we are here today to discuss again, to say that we've made substantial progress even from the last two days from where we were at. We are gaining momentum as we speak. We had Senator John Thune, Shelley Moore Capito, and Kevin Cramer all came out here recently on the Republican side in the Senate speaking favorably of the $908 billion package. I know on the Democratic side, we had Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer offer positive comments about the $908 billion package. We are moving in the right direction. I had extensive conversations last night with Cory Gardner. This is becoming one of his top priorities in the Senate as he leaves the Senate to make sure that this gets done before he leaves. So I encourage you to reach out to Cory Gardner himself and ask him his thoughts as he works with leadership in the Senate to push this to the finish line to get signed into law and get the American people and the American businesses the relief that they need that's represented by this $908 billion that we're talking about. Now, as we go forward, I got to tell you, this wouldn't have happened without the leadership of the folks here in the Problem Solvers Caucus. So I want to thank my co-chair, Josh Gottheimer, but most importantly, I want to thank each and every one of these members that came together and we were able to support this package because of the work and the relationship and the trusting relationship that this group has formed over the last years, working together and putting the American people first, not shedding the fact that we are proud Republicans, that we are proud Democrats, but at the end of the day, we know who we work for. And those are the people back home, the people that we are listening to, that we care deeply about. And I got to tell you, the leadership team that helped put this together, people like Dusty Johnson, Anthony Gonzalez, Fred Upton on the Republican side, Abigail Spanberger, Dean Phillips, and my good friend Josh Gottheimer on the Democratic side. I just got to tell you, it was hours upon hours of working together, listening to each other, and coming up with that sweet spot and common ground that's represented with this package. And so without further ado, I want to give my co-chair, Josh Gottheimer, the opportunity to say a few words. Josh.
Thanks, Tom. First, I just want to thank you so much, Tom, for your excellent leadership. And I just want to echo Tom's words. Every single member behind me was part of making this happen. And our Tiger team, the excellent leadership, as was mentioned, of Dean and Dusty and Anthony and Abigail and Fred. I mean, we're talking around the clock, working with our Senate colleagues for weeks, including on Thanksgiving Day, because that's how important it is to actually not just stand here, but now to get this across the finish line. And that's what we're all focused on. It's why we're working with our Senate colleagues, Republican and Democrat, and with leaderships, really just saying to them, this is our moment to get this done for the American people. We simply cannot afford to wait. And the support has been overwhelming. You've seen everyone from the Chamber to the Retail Federation to the airlines, obviously scores of groups who care about feeding families, because that's a key part of this, and making sure we get state and local aid to our struggling communities and unemployment to our families who are hurting as we go into the holiday season here and COVID spiking 200,000 cases a day. We know the reason why this is critical. We will not leave Washington until we get this done. That's our position. We're not going anywhere. So we're going to keep sitting down with our leadership and making it clear to them, we've got to make this happen. The momentum is building, as Tom said. And again, not just one side of the aisle, from both sides of the aisle. Our whole belief in the Problem Solvers Caucus is putting country first. Not Democrat or Republican first, but the United States of America. It's why we're here. And then we work together every single week, the 50 of us, 25 Democrats and 25 Republicans, to actually get things done. And that's, I know every one of my colleagues you're going to hear from, that's why they're here. And that's how this plan came together. Now we're still working. We're in the drafting phases right now of the legislation. That's what's going on. We had calls again this morning with our Senate colleagues, sitting down with them to make it happen. It's going to happen around the clock for the next days until we get a bill out there. It will get passed because we're going to fight every single day to make sure it happens. So I can't thank my colleagues enough. I can't thank my co-chair enough in this team, because this is what the model of governing should be about, working together for the country we represent. So now I'm going to turn it over to Abigail Spanberger, who's whip of the Problem Solvers Caucus and has done a phenomenal job over the last weeks helping pull this together. Abigail?
Thank you very much to my colleagues here. Thank you to our colleagues on the Senate side. As Josh Gottheimer noted, we spoke every single day, including on Thanksgiving Day. Though I did miss the Thanksgiving Day call because I was volunteering at an event in Central Virginia called the Giving Heart. It's an event where hundreds of volunteers come together year after year to deliver a wonderful Thanksgiving meal to families in need, to deliver resources, flu shots, donations to people who desperately need that support. And if hundreds upon hundreds of volunteers can come together in time of crisis to keep that tradition alive, to feed so many more hungry families across Central Virginia, then Congress damn well better come together and deliver the relief that is so necessary. Frankly, relief that was necessary weeks and months ago. But today is just as good a day as any to actually see it through. Those of us who are here today represent millions of Americans. And among those Americans, there are hungry families, parents without jobs, and thousands of small business owners who are on the verge of closing down everything they have worked to create and lay off the employees who depend on them. They're staring down a holiday season marked by tremendous uncertainty, and they're staring down the expiration of critical assistance programs. Congress cannot leave them behind. We must act. Our proposal is negotiated to provide them with the relief that they need and deserve. Our proposal is focused on the families, the children, the students, the public servants, and small business owners like restaurant owners throughout the communities we represent. They are at the center of this proposal. And while there will be additional necessary steps that we will take in the future, that we will debate and work hard to get across the finish line in the future, this package represents an opportunity to recognize the threat posed by the winter surge that we face now. In Virginia, we're seeing the increasingly dire effects of this surge. COVID-19 positivity in Virginia is now at 8.3%. It was at 5% just a few weeks ago. And just yesterday, the Commonwealth of Virginia reported the highest numbers of hospitalizations since the pandemic began. Nearly 15,000 Virginians have been hospitalized during this crisis. And yet, in the 7th District, we continue to see heartbreaking challenges facing our community members, including another devastating outbreak at one of our long-term care facilities. We are in an emergency, and while Congress acted swiftly earlier in the year to deliver negotiated relief, it has failed in the months since to continue to provide relief to American families, American workers, and American small business owners in this continued moment of desperate need. The day for a relief proposal was in fact yesterday, and yesterday it was the day before that and the day before that. But we have to act. We have to act. And as Republicans and as Democrats and as House members and our colleagues on the Senate, we have now seen people coming together, voicing their support for our proposal, and we have a clear opportunity to act, to finally act, and to deliver the much needed relief that so many across our communities, the millions who we represent, deserve and need right now. Thank you very much for being here today, and I will refer back to my colleague, Mr. Gottheimer.
Next up is Fred Upton from the great state of Michigan.
Well, thanks, Josh and Tom, for your leadership. And I just want to say, with apologies to my coal state members, I don't want to leave coal in everybody's pocket across the country at Christmas time because of our failure to take action that has to happen. Two things that really drive us here. I've got hospitals in my district that are 100% full. And predictions are that it's going to double again in 2 weeks. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to find the workers? We have to get this thing done. As I talk to my small businesses, they're struggling. A lot of them did get a PPP loan last spring. But now they're faced, those that survived, and we have hundreds and hundreds across the country that filed for bankruptcy. Now they're faced with the prospect of paying taxes on those loans that became grants that they never thought they're going to have to pay taxes on. It is worse than before. This legislation fixes that. And that's why all of us are behind it. We can't go home for Christmas until we get this thing done. And next on the list is a fellow member of the Tiger team, really good guy who really was driven to get this thing done with his passion, Dean Phillips from Minnesota. Hi, buddy.
Hey, everybody.
Say it louder.
There's a Japanese proverb that says, vision without action is just a daydream. And we've had enough daydreaming in this institution. I've got photos here of thousands of cars in line in Dallas, Texas, waiting for food. Many of them probably filled with children, 40% of whom have never been to a food bank before. On my other hand, I've got a photo of people in my own hometown of Minneapolis in line for food. And it's not 1933 in America, it's 2020 in the United States of America. We're standing in front of a temple of democracy behind me. And I think our founders would be ashamed of us right now. Ashamed of us. The inability to do the most basic, human, necessary work for the most prosperous, extraordinary country that this globe has ever known. But I come here not to condemn anybody, rather to extend an invitation to all of the Americans who might be watching this and who are wondering if they can have faith in government anymore, if this place could ever operate again. I understand why you might ask that, but I also ask you to look at my brothers and sisters behind me, Democrats and Republicans from all around the country, with varying backgrounds and life experiences and different political perspectives, but remarkably unified in doing what's best for this country. And I am so proud to be part of this group, because we are trying. And my invitation is to everybody else in the three buildings behind you and on the other side of this one behind me, to come together and do the most basic of basics for the people in our country. That's what our founders would have expected. And as the world watches the United States of America right now, after the recent election, and they wonder about our democracy right now, let's give them a reason to believe it works. That's why I'm here. That's why my brothers and sisters are here. God bless America. Thanks, everybody.
Next up is Dusty Johnson.
So last week, 778,000 Americans filed for unemployment benefits for the first time. And last week, 10,000 Americans died from COVID-19. And in that kind of an environment, inaction is inexcusable. I, like my colleagues, talk to nurses, to researchers, to nursing home employees, to tribes, to families, to landlords, to ag producers, to teachers, to hotel workers. And when I talk to those people who are working hardest during this pandemic, they make it clear that a focused and a targeted relief package would help them do their jobs, would help them triumph over COVID-19. Targeted, focused. That's what we're talking about today. This framework doesn't have dozens of unrelated provisions. Half of the money is repurposed from unspent CARES Act funding. This is not a difficult proposition. This is relief that this country needs. It is targeted. It is focused. I believe it's necessary. I believe that it will get done. And when it gets done, let there be no question who jump-started these negotiations. It is the Problem Solvers Caucus. It will have been because of the courage and the hard work and the dedication of the men and women who are gathered here today, who were not willing to take no for an answer. We are close. We know that every hour another political leader stands up and adds their voice to ours. We are dedicated to get this done. A key leader in this process has been the hardworking and dedicated lady from Virginia, Congresswoman Elaine Luria.
Good job, Dusty.
Well, good afternoon, and I join here today with my colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans, as part of the Problem Solvers Caucus. And you've heard the hard work that our Tiger team, my colleague Abigail Spanberger, also from Virginia, and Dusty and Dean and everyone is put into this package because people need this. They need this help. They are looking to their government, to their representatives, to provide those resources to get through the largest economic and public health crisis that we have seen in our lifetime. And as a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, like my colleagues here today, I'm proud to stand up and say that we are here working together in a bipartisan way and with our colleagues in the Senate to make this happen and to get people the help that they need. And I echo what's been said here today. We cannot go home for the holidays without providing that help to people in our communities around the country who may not have a holiday, may not have even the money to buy their children or their grandchildren a gift, or are worried about the roof over their head because an eviction is looming, or can't even buy that Christmas turkey to put on the table. We know that Americans need our help, and I'm proud to be part of this group that is working to help make that happen for you across America. And I would like to next bring up Tom Swazi, another member of the Problem Solvers Caucus who's been working very hard on this effort.
Thank you, Elaine. I also want to thank Josh and Tom for their great work and the Tiger team for all the efforts they put in here. The effects of this pandemic are cruelly uneven. Some individuals, some businesses, they're unscathed. They've hardly been affected. Other people are completely wiped out. And unfortunately, too many people living in a Beltway fantasy land have been immune from the cries for help that we all hear in our districts. We hear people, they call us. They're desperate. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their utility bills. They're on food bank lines, as you've heard. They're closing down their restaurant. They're closing down a catering hall. They're closing down their live entertainment venue. Mom and pop stores are going out of business. Sure, they're great retailers, online retailers are doing great, but other people have been laid off from the airlines. So we've got to finally recognize that we've got a job to do in the United States government. This is our most basic function, is to help our country, to help our people, to help our businesses get through this dark winter ahead of us. I've been one of the strongest advocates for more. I wanted more money for state and local aid. I wanted more money to be put in for so many different things in this package. But I, like the rest of our problem solvers here and the senators that are working together with us, recognize we need the help now, before Christmas. We can't wait till February or March. The devastation will be too dramatic. So I want to thank everybody who's worked so hard on this, who've put their country first, and let's keep on pushing to get this done before Christmas. We can't go home without getting this done. And with that, I want to introduce my co-vice chair and a great guy, Brian Fitzpatrick.
Every single one of us here know, not just my colleagues behind me, but all of you, how any functional relationship in our lives work. You listen more than you lecture. You view diversity of thought as a strength to be harnessed, not a weakness to be criticized. You don't allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good. And you take a belief that you'd rather have 80% of something than 100% of nothing. That's how any functional relationship in any of our lives works. That is not how this place works. That's how we work. That's how we function. That's how you all function in your lives. That is not how this institution works right now. So if you can sense the anger and the frustration in our voices, it's real, because it's echoing the anger and frustrations that we're hearing when we go back home. All of us represent a little bit over 700,000 constituents back home, and I know they're hearing the same thing I am. You have people that are on death's doorstep, both from a health standpoint and an economic standpoint, that are begging for us to do a very, very basic function, which is to come to the center, build consensus, and move forward. It's how anything that works in our lives operates on a normal basis. And that's what we're trying to do, is restore sanity to this institution. And there are 50 of us now. If there were 218 of us in that institution, and if any one of us from either party were in House leadership, you wouldn't have this gridlock. You would not have it, because we operate in a very, very common sense, pragmatic, rational, reasonable, methodical way to not allow anything extraneous to block progress so that we can get something across the finish line. And that's what we're here for. So kudos to my colleagues, Democrat and Republican. We are not just colleagues, we're friends. We stand with each other and behind each other. And we're hopeful. We're not going anywhere until we get something done. Yeah, Vice Chair Schrader, you're here, sir.
Yes, sir. Where are the glasses? When we started the Problem Solvers 8 years ago, we hoped this day would come. Over the years, we've had a great time working up and developing these relationships you've heard about here today. Things that were unknown when I came to the United States Congress. Those relationships breed trust, and they breed good legislation. We had a huge impact in the humanitarian aid at the border 2 years ago. That deal came together because of the Problem Solvers. Over the last 2 years, we've tried to broaden our reach beyond just House members, reach out to the Senate of the United States of America, and we found willing partners, folks that are also interested in being problem solvers. Big push came together. The Tiger team, kudos to them. The rest of the members here reached out to senators on both sides of the aisle, get them engaged. What could actually pass? What could we get done for the American people before the end of this year to help them through the toughest of crises we've seen in my lifetime? And they responded. And since you have the legislation here before you, it's a framework. It hopefully helps our leadership understand what members are willing to go for, what the parameters are. And I think that's key. That's key to helping leadership do its job. I'm hopeful that they'll take it up in the next week or so. We need to get this done. I agree. We shouldn't go home for Christmas without making sure there's a Christmas for every American. And Jimmy Panetta.
Hey, great intro.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you. Let me just start off by obviously thanking Tom and Josh and the other members of the Tiger team that worked so hard with our Senate colleagues to put this together. This is how things need to work in the 117th going forward. It is how things need to work today. I want to also show my appreciation for the incoming administration that is prioritizing pandemic relief. But we can't wait till January 20th. We can't wait till next week. We can't wait till tomorrow. Why? Because this pandemic is exploding. Our hospitals are bursting and our economy is hurting. You have 11 million people who are going to lose unemployment benefits. You have 26 million people who are facing food security. And you have millions of renters, student loan borrowers, and families whose benefits are going to run out soon enough. This is a time for us to come together, as you've seen. This was also a time just last month in which those same people showed their faith in the democratic process by coming out in record numbers to vote and showing their belief in our democracy. They gave us their votes. It's our turn to give us this funding to help them fight this disease, to get through this dark winter, and so that we can recover in spring. Thank you. I'd like to introduce to you a good friend of mine, John Katko.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it is an honor to be here with my brothers and sisters on the Problem Solvers Caucus and doing this important work. And I commend all of them for what they did to put this package together. As they made clear to you, the economy is struggling. The hospitals are struggling. And really, basically, it's on fire right now. And it's like a fireman at a firehouse hears a fire alarm going off and again and again and again and chooses to polish a fire truck, and so the next time it goes out it looks better. We got to stop doing that. We've got to, time to act is now. And I just urge our leaders on both sides of the aisle to put down their swords once and for all, get this package done, and make it a good Christmas for everybody, to know, give them some hope that things are going to get better. Time for talking is over. Time to act is now. Thank you. And now let me introduce to you Alyssa Slotkin.
Hi, everyone. I echo the comments of my colleagues. We had this amazing Tiger team that worked their butts off to get to this proposal, and we all owe them a debt of gratitude. And I stand in front of you today basically with equal parts pride and frustration. Pride that the Problem Solvers Caucus came together in a bipartisan, bicameral way to come up with another proposal for COVID relief. But in doing so, I acknowledge that I'm also deeply frustrated with what has led us to this point. 3 months ago in August, when negotiations stalled between the White House, the Senate, and the House, many of us in this bipartisan caucus started talking about coming together to come up with our own proposal. A group of people worked very hard so that in September, we were able to stand at this exact same podium to kickstart negotiations with a proposal. Due to that work, we did jumpstart those negotiations, and I took a lot of pride in that. Unfortunately, election politics got in the way, and all three legs of the stool, the White House, the House, and the Senate leadership, own a part of that failure. Since that time, the situation has got precipitously worse. Across the country, 7 million Americans have gotten sick and 75,000 have died in those 3 months that we have been negotiating. In Michigan alone, we've seen a 9-fold increase in daily cases. So I stand at the podium today with another bipartisan proposal. This time it wasn't just the House and a bipartisan proposal, it includes the Senate, and I again feel pride. Now we can all outline the reasons why this is so desperate. As my colleague Fred Upton said, the 5 hospitals in my district are at or near full capacity. Food banks have never been busier. Our restaurants, hospitality industry, our small businesses are facing oblivion. And our mission right now is to witness these stories and do something about it. For everyone who has platitudes about what the country is going through, you should be asking them specifically, what have they done today to actually move us forward toward a compromise? If they're just offering platitudes and they haven't come and joined us, signed up and endorsed the proposal, and said they're going to stay here until we get this done, whatever it does to their Christmas break, then they are talking empty words with nothing behind it. It is no consequence to an ICU nurse or a small business owner to just have those empty words. What they care about is us getting together and fulfilling our mission to pass a bill. I thank my colleagues here for stepping up and finding common ground. I urge leadership on all sides to make the same commitment that people are making at home every single day, which is waking up and finding a way to muscle through this crisis. We owe that to them. We owe it to the country. Thanks very much. And Mr. Carbajal.
Each one of us goes back to our district and hears the same thing over and over in recent months. Our workers are swelling the ranks of unemployed. Our businesses are going under. Our schools are still closed. Our families are food insecure, many facing eviction. Our hospitals are swelling with patients. We have a sense of urgency here, and we need to get beyond the gridlock that defines this institution that we are all part of. I couldn't be prouder of my colleagues, the Problem Solvers Caucus, who have worked to find common ground, to provide a framework for our leaderships on both sides of the aisle, to make it easier for them to move forward and take action now. Too many people are hurting. We need to act today. This is a down payment on continued support that the American people and my district are going to need to be able to get beyond this pandemic, both for our public health and our economy. So we need to act now. And again, I'm very grateful for all the work that everybody has put into this proposal. And next, I'd like to introduce Representative Horn.
Thank you very much. I want to begin by echoing my gratitude for this group of people, for the problem solvers. Since the very beginning of this pandemic, and even before then, we have come together to bring proposals forward that are timely, that are targeted and transparent, and meet the needs of our communities. As many of my colleagues have said, hospitals in my district are at capacity. We have external tents and temporary structures being set up right now because of the place that we are in this pandemic. Our businesses are hurting, our communities are suffering. And quite frankly, it's inexcusable that we have done nothing since the CARES Act. We are the people that you see behind me who have been consistently reaching across the aisle, bringing proposals forward to address the very real issues that are happening in our communities. And the only way that we're going to do this is together. Magical thinking and promises down the road don't help the families who are hungry, the people who are suffering. We have to take action, and we have to do it now. We simply cannot wait any longer. And I want to echo the comments of everyone here who has said we should not leave. We will not leave until this is done. And to thank all of the Tiger team and the leaders for this work that is for the American people, the bipartisan solutions that it's going to take for us to show up and serve our communities. I'm dedicated to it, and I know every single person up here is as well. And that's what we should be asking for from those who are elected to serve us. Thank you. And up next is Bill Johnson.
American families are hurting. Businesses are hurting. I'm not going to reiterate and repeat everything that you've heard from my colleagues, but I'm honored to stand with the problem solvers to solve this problem. This is not the first time that the problem solvers have come to the table with a negotiating framework to solve it. We should not go home until we get this done. That's what the American people sent us here to do, and I stand with my colleagues to make sure we do. I think next we have my colleague, Mr. Brindisi.
Thank you. Well, I am not the shortest problem solver, but I will offer the shortest comments. This package, I'm not pointing anyone out. This package represents two simple words: common sense. And that's what the problem solvers do best. We bring people together to solve big problems that affect the American people. And as I talk to my constituents before they go to bed every night, the things they're worried about is how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to help their children meet the challenges of distance learning, how they're going to get a job if their restaurant closes down for a second time. So I'm proud to support this package. I urge my colleagues to support this in both houses. Let's go home and deliver for the American people. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Tom O'Halloran.
Thank you, Anthony. Well, here we are. We left in August. We left before Thanksgiving. Hopefully we won't leave before Christmas. And as we said, we will be here. And I agree with everything that's been said about the problem solvers, about their leadership, the Tiger team. But our hearts go out to the people in the healthcare community that are trying to weather this storm. 16-hour days, lack of equipment. This has been going on for month after month after month. The frustration that you've seen from them is just unbelievable. I'm one of the older ones here, maybe the oldest.
Thanks for looking at me.
Fred, I'm older than Fred, unless he's going to be 75 in January.
Sign up for Medicare.
I'm on it. I just want to say this. We cannot continue to see our neighbors and friends and fellow Americans die like this. We cannot see fellow Americans and their families torn apart. And we cannot do anything that will hurt our health care system anymore. And as I said on the floor earlier today, we got to take care of this damn problem. Bye.
Before he drops the mic, let me go to Joe Cunningham. Thanks.
First of all, I want to thank Tom Reed and Josh Gottheimer for leading this bipartisan coalition, and just thank you for your friendship as well. I think it's safe to say we find ourselves in unprecedented times right now. A global pandemic that's claimed the lives of 274,000 Americans. Our economy is in desperate straits. People are losing loved ones. Businesses are shuttering, and meanwhile, politicians continue pointing fingers. These times beg for strong leadership, bipartisanship, for it is that way of thinking that will deliver our country from these very troubling times. You've heard a little bit about what this agreement is, but with my limited time, I just want to speak to the group that crafted it and the need for it during such highly charged partisan times in our country. You see, our country is as divided as it's ever been. And what I've seen here in my short tenure is that our politics are completely toxic, and Washington is more gridlocked than any time in recent history. But during these turbulent times, this group, the Problem Solvers Caucus, has been a beacon of hope in an otherwise very, very dark environment. This is a group that knows that the other party is not the enemy. The enemy is a stubbornness of our own biases. The enemy is a political culture that seeks to divide us just for sport. Instead of fighting each other, we should be fighting for each other. We should be fighting to change the culture that has polluted our politics and divided our country for far too long. We have to start talking to each other again. And most importantly, we've got to start listening to each other again. You know, I've been told that a tree becomes stronger as it's exposed to winds. Because the harder the wind blows, the tree's roots will extend deeper into the ground, reaching further into the earth to make it more stable and make it stronger. That's nature. I tell you that because it's similar elsewhere too. And it's true of this particular group. Because as the partisanship winds blow harder here in D.C., it's groups like this that will dig in, expand their roots, allowing the tree of democracy to be stronger, more stable, and able to withstand any political storm. Leaders, bipartisan leaders, like the one standing behind me, make our democracy stronger. And I simply feel honored to be counted among them. Thank you.
Well, in a sign of effectiveness, I hope, as we were standing here, it has been brought to my attention that the president just issued a statement saying he is in support of our $900+ billion package. So we are now.
That's good. Come on.
Well, Lindsay, we're gonna declare a moment of optimism here in front of the Capitol. But the bottom line is, with that support, that there's recognition that this is a package that needs to get signed into law, that the American people need this relief, and that these members are standing together as Democrats and as Republicans, but as we opened up with, as proud Americans. It is time for this institution to do its job. And as we said, we are not leaving until that signature is on this package and that relief is flowing. And it's because of the members that are standing here before you as true American leaders. Questions?
So in the spirit of common sense, let's take your questions.
Following up on the president, since it was kind of unclear what he would support, if it was your bipartisan proposal, has anyone gotten a commitment from the president or anyone in the White House that he would be on board with this? Not a public commitment, but a private commitment.
So what we have always prided ourselves on in the Problem Solvers Caucus is we keep our leadership as well as our relationship with the White House. Those communications, we keep them apprised as to what we're working on and what we're doing. And so throughout this entire process, what we have been talking about when we got to this agreement, we knew this was in the zone of what they would be in a position to support. Now, as we put the final details together, obviously the details matter, and so I would anticipate until that final detail package is out there, we'll get the formal commitment of support from all the players that you're talking about. But that being said, a public indication from the White House, a public indication from our leadership in the House in regards to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, as well as now momentum building on both sides of the aisle, bodes well for the fact that this is the package that moved the needle to get people to say we would support this level of support going out to the American people. So that, I think that is a very positive development, and I would take it as a positive sign that now we just have to get the final details etched out into agreement.
Go ahead, and then we're there. Sorry.
Would you say, I mean, Schumer and Pelosi have now endorsed your product as the basis, and we have not heard a similar commitment from McConnell or McCarthy. Would it be fair to say the onus is now on them to come to the table and endorse this? Is that the next step that needs to happen?
Well, maybe on our side of that, just when you have the president now coming out and moving in the direction of this proposal, and you saw the Democratic leadership moving in the direction of this proposal, we're in the zone. And we knew through the conversations that going back and forth and truly listening to each other, that $900 billion was where that common ground was. And so, you know, I think we're going to get there, and let's just defer to them as to how they're going to respond to that direct question. But I will tell you, I'm very confident, given now the nature of the developments, that we're there.
And I'll just say the key here is 908, which is the number we've been focused on, as you know, and driving toward where we've been able to find both support in the House and the Senate, and the priorities underneath it, right? It's not just the number. It's also what we agreed to, and you all know the outlines of the package. So I think those priorities have to be will continue to be front and center, and as we have these discussions and draft the legislation in the next day or two. And I promise that, gentleman, and then we'll go over. Yes.
To follow up on his question, have you had any conversations with McConnell or his team, and what have they been like? Because he has made very clear that he is still focused on his targeted bill that is, not even half of what you guys are proposing.
So, obviously we keep them apprised as to what we're doing. We are having conversations, like I mentioned, with Cory Gardner, and we've been talking to leadership in the Senate as well as their teams. Obviously, we're public positioning and what they have to do, so we won't speak for them. And we keep those conversations, the detailed conversations, private, because that's important to our credibility and the ability to do the business that we do in getting people to find that common ground and talk to each other. So I'll defer to them as to where they end up, but I will just tell you, when you see people and the momentum going in the right direction, I think time in short order will show that we're in the area where we're going to land this plane. Lindsay?
On the Democratic side, Schumer and Pelosi in their statement said that they want more money in the improvements in the proposal, including more money for state and local and vaccine distribution. Have they given you any specifics beyond that as to what improvements they want to see, and do you think that that's feasible? Who's working on those improvements?
Well, I spoke to the speaker this morning again. We continue to have conversations, and we had meetings with our group, with our Senate colleagues this morning. I think everybody, I really believe we're very, very close. The language, of course, as Tom just said, is critically important. It's what we're working on now in the bill, and I think that some of the debates will find their way onto those pages as we wrap this up. But I believe I think from the feedback I've gotten is we're just about there. The question now is in the language of the bill, making sure that what we put on the page gets onto those pages.
Do you have a timeline for bill text? Like, when could we see actual bill text here? And secondly on that, obviously Pelosi and Schumer's statement was that this would serve as a framework for negotiations. So are they at the table with you guys now writing the actual text, since they said this could be a basis for an actual deal?
Well, I'll offer two things. Obviously we've been at this for many months in regards to the framework that you see here in the $908 billion proposal. So legislative text has been floating out there in pieces. So that text is out there, if you would. And staff has been doing yeoman's work in regards to working with us on a day-to-day basis and a tireless basis to put this together. And so I think you'll see the text be built. We're trying to shoot for over the weekend here as we try to land this plane. But the bottom line is I'm not concerned about the text so much being a delay issue, because so much time has been prepared and dedicated to that as we speak. And you were going to...
That's right.
Given the positive reaction you're getting from both sides of the aisle, do you see that as a sign that in the next Congress on fiscal issues, moderates could have more influence compared to this session of Congress going forward?
Well, I believe, I'll just say that common sense will be what dictates in the next Congress. And I think the idea, this model of how we're working together, to me, is exactly the model to get things done in the next Congress, right? And Democrats and Republicans coming together, not just here, but obviously given the narrow majorities, working together with our Senate colleagues. So now I'm not thinking, I'm trying not to focus on next year. We got to focus on getting this done now. But I think this is the model with how we actually can get things done versus people screaming at each other and yelling at each other. This is the right approach.
You probably heard some members say they want stimulus payments in this package right now. Are you going to try to get that in there? Do you support putting that into this $908 billion package?
As you know, everything's about putting things down and trying to get what you can get. And we've been working around the clock, as Tom has said, with this group behind us for weeks. There's things we'd all like more of, but the bottom line is, we believe whether you're talking about helping people with unemployment, whether you're talking about nutrition and making sure those who, as Dean showed the picture, you've got people for the first time in the food lines, and making sure we've got support in there for them and for our schools and for childcare and for rental assistance. So many of the priorities that we all care about are in the values we believe in and fight for are on this 908, and I believe that's going to be what we're going to fight for in the next days to make sure that that's what happens.
All right, I think one last question.
Does your group generally believe that this bill is
And I think that this, I look at this as a down payment, and we're going to see, as Tom and I have talked about, we're going to see, and the whole group, where the country is, of course, in the new administration. What our focus here is an emergency short-term package to get us through a very tough time in our country, to get us through the first quarter next year into a new administration. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot more help that's needed, but the bottom line is, for now, what we're focused on is making sure we don't go home, we don't leave here until we actually deliver. And that will continue to be our focus in the days ahead. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, everyone.
That's fine. Thanks.